An international sports team playing at the highest level went from winning about 5% of their games to winning 70% of their games over a similar 18-month to 2-year period. The squad of players changed little. They got a new captain, although he'd been playing for the team for years. What really changed was the coach and, most importantly, the mindset. Simply put, the coach and the captain have taken away the fear of failure, and now they rarely fail. In fact, they've not just become winners, but an inspiration. Has the last word on coaching sports teams been written? Is this the way to manage any team, in sport, in work, anywhere? This is the story of and the life lessons from the England cricket team and Bazball. I'm Mike Harlow.
I'm Tim Woodward, and welcome to Custard Creams. 2 Brits, a cup of tea, a biscuit, and the best of music, sport, TV and film, and all popular culture, now and then.
So in this last episode about Bazball, we're going to look at, can you apply this philosophy of an absence of fear of failure and going out there and enjoying it and entertaining as much as you can? Can you apply this to any sports team? In fact, any team in any walk of life? Can you apply this to a team you might be managing at work? So, Tim, tell me, does this translate? Does this translate to other sports? Can you see examples of, look and feel similar, or examples where that hasn't worked, or the opposite is happening?
Yeah, I think the short answer to the question is yes, but that would make for a very short chapter of our podcast. But I think you can, because the fundamentals are applicable almost to any human endeavor, frankly, because it's about creating the right approach to whatever you're dealing with, and that is not being driven by the fear of it not going right. And as we'll come to in a second, I think you can apply that to almost anything you do. Ultimately, people will perform better if they're not worrying, if they're not clouded by thoughts of things going wrong or failure. What used to be called choking, I suppose, in sports terminology. If people are not filled with that indecision, they just simply play better. If they're happier and more confident, they just perform to a much higher level.
So, how can we as humans have those two thoughts in our head? One is that people only perform at their best if you understand them, support them, encourage them, take away the fear of failure. But on the other hand, you've got to give them a fear of failure. Otherwise, they don't bother, they don't care, they don't turn up on time.
I think it's honesty, a lot of this,
Yeah.
Because you need people to be honest in the way they approach things and not driven by lots of other competing concerns and issues that make them act in a different way. And I think with McCullum and Stokes and Key, there is an honesty to the way they approach this. And I think the simple fact is people will love playing for them, partly because of that honesty. I am sure they don't tell everyone they've always done great, because that's dishonest. So I don't think this is a case of, you've played 2 horrendous shots and got 2 ducks, and they'll be slapping you on the back saying, this is exactly what we want, this is great. Yeah. I imagine they could be straightforwardly honest to most people, but they want great shots and we need to work on this. But the point is, it'll be done in a refreshingly straightforward way, I imagine. And even people who might be dropped, I think, again, it might be, look, it's kind of not working at the moment and we need to go and improve on this and this. But there's a faith that they're being honest with them, and that gets repaid, tenfold. That when people feel that there's honesty at the core of it, they respond to that in any team situation.
I think that's 100% right, actually. From what I've read and understood, and what I thought about in terms of good relationships in teams I've been a part of, it's not about saying you're brilliant when you're not, or that was great when it wasn't. But trust is about, when things aren't going right for you, you'll tell me. Not you'll ignore me or blank me or, move on, and I'm left wondering, what happened and whether I've got your support anymore.
If you look at the England international football side, for years we've always had this narrative, the shirt hangs heavy on the shoulders, and England have. We've always got a golden generation of one form or another, going back 20 years now. And they perform, much less well than they do for their clubs. And that's because of the pressure and the scrutiny and the challenge of playing for England. And you would say that Gareth Southgate has clearly made a huge difference to the culture of that team.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not, I don't think, any coincidence that we've started to perform much more strongly in tournaments because of that cultural change. They seem a lot happier. I suspect he's probably a more honest, straightforward and person of integrity than some of the coaches that they've had and dealt with in the past. Where I would say there's still, room to look at Bazball and translate it to England football might be in the caution. Because I think Southgate is great at creating a good atmosphere. He's great at talking to the press and the media. I suspect he's a very caring, decent human being, and that's all fantastic. I think the bit he could learn might be that ability to take off the handbrake, to let them go, to really let the team express themselves and not worry that if we concede 2 stupid goals, that, all right, we'll get a load of nonsense from the press. He'll get hammered. But you've got to say, but I won't let that change the way I approach everything. And that's back to the organisation that sits behind Gareth Southgate.
That's the problem with it, isn't it? There's that moment of danger whenever it feels like you're not winning, then this approach gets blamed, and therefore people return to a more negative mindset. And which is why Bazball in the first period, I think, was delicate. It was like carrying a Ming vase across a marble floor, because if they didn't show that it worked, because it's all in the mind, if it didn't translate into results, then it was going to be a failed experiment. How do you help the people who might criticize you or put you under pressure to do something different? What should Gareth Southgate do?
Yeah, well, I think that one of the fundamental lessons of this is, again, the importance of honesty, walking it like you talk it, and being straight with people, and also actually sticking to your fundamental belief, which in this case and what we're talking about now is almost people will always do better if they are feeling more confident, more supported, happier. It doesn't mean everyone's going to be perfect, and it doesn't mean that everyone will always get things right, but they will undoubtedly do better than they would do. And I think if you stand back and say, it will be much better for my organisation, my sports team, for people to be doing better than they would do if they were worried, well, frankly, that's what I'll do. And I won't stray from that. Doesn't mean I won't tackle things that are a problem.
I'm hopeful that this generation is hopefully not going to go back from being much more open about mental well-being. And I think that the thing that Stokes particularly has brought to this is honesty about his own mental well-being, and his determination not to go back is visceral. If you make yourself as a coach or a manager or whatever vulnerable, and saying, this is me, and I don't want fear of failure, and I'm going to make sure that you don't have it too, as best as I can. It doesn't mean we don't have to work on things. It doesn't mean I won't have to make choices around what the team is, but that's what we're trying to do here. Then I hope that that honesty, that openness, and that importance of mental well-being that we place these days hopefully means it's likely to be a bit more sticky and a bit more successful, have a greater longevity than it has been in the past.
Yeah, I think you come back to the fundamentals, which is people perform much better when they're happier and confident and supported than they do when they're not. And ultimately, at the end of the, whatever group you're in, that is probably where you want to be, rather than people worrying about, well, if I get this wrong, then I'm out.
So, Bazball, it is not carefree approach to sport. It is about removing the fear of failure of sport and allowing you to focus and care an awful lot about how well you do and how well you play. And it's clearly successful. It's not a new idea, but it's its fragility that means it hasn't really had many great long examples of succeeding. It is doing wonders for the drama and the engagement and the entertainment in Test cricket. Long may it live, and hopefully we can take the lessons of how clearly advantageous it is into other walks of life.